talking about Mossad, talking about the CIA. Who does the CIA work for? Who does Mossad work for? So we have to go a level up if we really want to know what's going on, and look beyond CIA and Mossad and see, who's really, at least at the scale up, a key part of the power structure that's really running the show, because, it's important for them that the public doesn't really look that high up.
For decades, we've been sold the myth that Silicon Valley's biggest players, Google, Facebook, Amazon, were built by genius entrepreneurs driven by innovation and competition. But what if that was never the full story? What if these tech empires were never truly independent, but instead carefully cultivated extensions of a much older power structure, one that operates in the shadows, manipulating economies, controlling narratives, and tightening its grip on the digital world? Investigative journalist Whitney Webb has spent years uncovering the connections between intelligence agencies, organized crime, and the rise of big tech. What she exposes in today's video isn't just corporate overreach or government surveillance. It's a hidden network of power that has shaped the modern world in ways most people can't even imagine. The truth is, Silicon Valley was never just about technology. Many of the world's most powerful tech companies were seeded with funding from entities like the CIA and DARPA. These intelligence agencies weren't simply interested in national security. They were invested in creating systems of control, embedding themselves into the very platforms billions of people now rely on. From the early days of Google and Facebook to the financial entanglements of tech moguls with figures like Jeffrey Epstein, the fingerprints of intelligence agencies are everywhere. Whitney argues that this isn't just about corporate monopolies or government surveillance. It's about a ruling class that has used the cover of innovation to build a digital ecosystem that serves their interests, not ours. And the most dangerous part? Most people still believe they're free. But as we move further into a world dominated by artificial intelligence, digital IDs, and cashless economies, that illusion is beginning to crack. In a recent interview with Kim Iversen, Whitney Webb unravels the truth behind big tech's deepest secrets, their origins, their hidden alliances, and the disturbing future they're building. Please watch, share, and like as we bring you clips from Whitney's explosive interview. Also, ensure you subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
I mean, basically, at the end of the day, these entities and this power structure have been successful because people have not really been aware of what's been going on and how interconnected a lot of these oligarch networks ultimately are, and how connected they are to our national security state. Because a lot of people, if we're just talking about, back to my point earlier, talking about Mossad, talking about the CIA. Who does the CIA work for? Who does Mossad work for? In the case of the CIA, it's very clear that it was created by Wall Street bankers who entered into questionable alliances with organized crime, and bankers and organized crime are both ultimately interested in expanding their rackets and is making as much money as possible. And so eventually you have certain economic networks, and these alliances dominated what is now corporate America, the multinational corporation. That's who the CIA has, throughout most of its history, conducted coups on behalf of. So we have to go a level up if we really want to know what's going on, and look beyond CIA and Mossad and see, who's really, at least at the scale up, a key part of the power structure that's really running the show, because, it's important for them that the public doesn't really look that high up, because then it just seems like we can't really do anything about it. But I think people ultimately can. And what I've argued a lot for a long time is that, people need to try and extricate themselves, from, the biggest iteration of what this mob is today, which is really big tech, which is, again, a lot of these CEOs connected to figures like Epstein or other questionable associations. And also almost all of the big Silicon Valley companies today have origins or funding tied to the CIA or to DARPA or to entities like that. and that we should boycott them as much as possible and not use their services as much as possible and not be dependent on these entities, because if we're dependent, then they can do whatever they want to us.
Yeah.
And so the best way to not give up is to work to be as independent of those systems as possible, because if we're dependent on them, you're basically a slave to these people at the end of the day, which is what I think most Americans do not want. But I think there's a lot of efforts being made to sort of keep people in the box of where they think, oh, well, if I vote for this party or this politician and this candidate, I don't have to do anything to ensure my independence from the system. I can remain dependent on the system and hope that politician XYZ will magically save the day and fix the country and ends this ruling power of 80 plus years of intelligence and organized crime. Yeah, I think it's really something that has to be sort of done on an individual level, and people need to take individual responsibility if they don't want to be part of this system, particularly as we move into this increasingly digital future that these very small handful of companies are going to completely control.
The consequences of Whitney Webb's revelations extend far beyond the origins of Silicon Valley. What we're witnessing today is the maturation of a system where technology, intelligence agencies, and corporate power have fused into an almost inescapable force. The same tech giants that billions of people rely on for work, communication, and information are not just businesses. They are tools of influence, control, and surveillance. For the average person, this means that nearly every aspect of life is now subject to unseen hands shaping their reality. The information we see online, the transactions we make, the personal data we assume is private, these are all monitored, filtered, and, when necessary, manipulated. This isn't just about censorship or privacy violations. It's about the steady erosion of personal autonomy. The system is designed to make us dependent on cloud services, social media platforms, AI algorithms, and, increasingly, centralized digital finance. As Whitney warns, this isn't a theoretical threat. The push for digital IDs, CBDCs, and AI-driven governance means that soon, opting out of these systems will be nearly impossible. The more control they exert over the digital world, the less room individuals have to operate outside of it. Governments and corporations no longer need to rely on force to maintain control. If they control the infrastructure, they control access to society itself. The most insidious part? It's all happening under the guise of convenience. The more we embrace frictionless transactions, algorithmic recommendations, and seamless digital integration, the more we surrender our ability to exist outside their control. The system is expanding, and every new technological advancement only deepens the dependency. But the real danger isn't just in how these entities operate, it's in how little resistance they face. Most people don't question the power structures behind big tech, intelligence agencies, and Wall Street because they've been conditioned to see them as separate forces rather than interwoven parts of the same machine. And that's exactly how they maintain control, by keeping the public unaware, distracted, and dependent. Let's get back to Whitney's video for more explosive revelations.
But actually, my work on Peter Thiel is intimately connected to my work on Epstein. And in my book, One Nation Under Blackmail, I basically conclude with the point that someone like Epstein is no longer really relevant for intelligence services or organized crime networks or oligarch networks in the age of technology. And why is that? So back in the day, you have Epstein and a litany of other figures like him, which I detail figures in my book. He was obviously not an anomaly at all. But that type of sexual blackmail operation comes with a lot of risk. It takes a lot of money to finance, the person who's running it, their mansion, their parties, paying off women, all of these money flows. It can be risky. And it certainly ended up being that in the Epstein case, right? Because he was he was discovered, arrested twice, and it obviously took a lot of money to cover things up, at least the first time and arguably the second time as well, where he ended up dead. So what's a better alternative? Well, if you have everyone onboarded onto digital systems that you control, like the CIA being at the origins of Google, DARPA being at the origins of Facebook, the CIA being at the origins of Oracle, and a lot of these other entities, Bill Gates and Microsoft having ties to the Maxwell family as early as the late 90s and things like that. And obviously Gates and Epstein, what does that ultimately mean? Like, I think, at this point in time, we've learned through either whistleblowers or other means that intelligence agencies access or can access pretty much any part of our digital footprint, no matter how secure we tend to think it is. And that's like with revelations about, ostensibly secure messaging apps like Signal being compromised or having had some sort of military funding in its origins or what have you. It's much easier to suck up all of Americans' communications without a warrant, and that necessarily is in the hands of a lot of these same agencies with dubious track records that have engaged in blackmail in the past, like the CIA, for example. And so, with that kind of technology, you don't really need someone like Epstein anymore. Someone like Epstein becomes expendable because you can use technology for that. And I argue in the book that Peter Thiel's Palantir was basically a repurposing of this DARPA program called Total Information Awareness that was developed by the Iran-Contra criminal who was exonerated by William Barr when he covered Iran-Contra and other notable scandals of the era up in the first Bush administration. Poindexter's considered the father of modern surveillance, and it was basically he was running this total information awareness program. Peter Thiel and Alex Karp came to him, being connected through Richard Pearl, who has longstanding ties to the state of Israel and also the U.S. neoconservative movement, and also Netanyahu. Basically, bringing those together, looking for a way to privatize total information awareness after it came under congressional scrutiny and was ultimately defunded by Congress because of private outrage that it would eliminate the constitutional right to privacy for all Americans, which is absolutely true. But the outrage disappeared when it was entirely a private company, and Palantir was incubated by the CIA. The CIA was its first customer for its several years. It was a client, and now it's a key part of, IDF AI mass slaughter in Gaza, and has been a key part of the U.S.-Israel relationship since then. But more specifically, domestically in the U.S., it is the engine on which the warrantless mass surveillance runs. It collects everything about everyone and makes it disposable to intelligence agencies, and it's very easy to find blackmail on people with an entity like Palantir being so widely used.
Whitney Webb's revelations make one thing undeniably clear. The mechanisms of power have evolved. What once required risky, covert operations now operate seamlessly through digital infrastructure. The era of figures like Jeffrey Epstein, where blackmail was conducted through physical entrapment, has given way to a far more efficient an insidious system of control. Today, surveillance isn't just a tool, it's the foundation of governance. Intelligence agencies, once constrained by legal oversight, now access the personal data of billions under the guise of national security. With Palantir and similar technologies at their disposal, they no longer need to set up elaborate traps. Everything about a person, financial transactions, communications, search histories, location data, is already collected, analyzed, and, when necessary, weaponized. This is the real danger of big tech's alliance with intelligence agencies. The same platforms that connect us, that streamline our daily lives, that shape public discourse. These are the tools of modern coercion, not just for blackmail, but for mass behavioral manipulation. The power to censor, to deplatform, to rewrite history in real time is now centralized in the hands of a few interconnected entities. This isn't speculation. The integration of tech giants with the intelligence state is well documented, and their reach continues to expand. And yet, the greatest threat isn't their power, it's our dependence on their systems. If you rely on them for your job, your news, your money, your social life, then the moment you step out of line, they can make you disappear, not physically, but digitally. And in an increasingly digital world, that's just as effective. So, where does that leave us? The illusion that politicians can fix this, that a single election can break these entrenched power structures, is a comforting lie. Real resistance comes not from ballots, but from building independence, from recognizing the trap before it closes completely, from stepping away from the platforms, services, and systems designed to keep us compliant. Because if we don't, the future isn't just one of mass surveillance. It's one where the very idea of freedom exists only as an algorithmic illusion, designed, curated, and controlled by the very people who built this machine. And once that system is fully in place, there may be no way out. The truth is out there, but only if we're willing to see it. If this video opened your eyes to the deeper connections between big tech, intelligence agencies, and the systems controlling our lives, like, comment, and subscribe to stay informed and empowered. Don't let this conversation end here. Share this video to help others uncover the truth. And most importantly, take action. Question the platforms you rely on. Seek out independent alternatives. Protect your privacy. Because the future isn't written yet, but if we don't push back now, it will be written for us. Thanks for watching.